Welcome to the Career Creator Podcast, where we highlight the stories of everyday women moving through fear to make changes in their life and career. Thanks for being here. I'm your host, Rachel. Okay, so welcome to the Career Creator Podcast, everyone. Today we have Kelsey with us, who is a friend of mine. I'm so excited to have her on. It is really a full circle moment because I was a guest on her podcast a few years ago, so it is so nice to be on the other side of things and have Kelsey as a guest today. How are you doing, Kelsey?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am good, and I want to say shout out because you were one of the first people I called when I had this idea to start a podcast, and you gave me so many tips, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, of course. I'm glad to be able to share my knowledge in any way that I can.
Well, to go ahead and get started, I'd love to ask you the first question I like to ask all guests. When you were growing up, what was your dream job, or what did you tell people you wanted to be when you grew up?
So it depends on what year you asked me, because every year you have a different thing that you want to be. I think at one point I wanted to be an ice skater.
Ooh, that's a popular one.
Overarching thing I think that I would answer the longest was a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher growing up. I loved playing school. That was my jam.
Oh, and did you have a certain grade or just teacher?
Oh, that's a great question. Third grade. That was my favorite grade in school. And so I wanted to be a third grade teacher, just like Mrs. Renfro.
Oh, that is so sweet. So you need to send this episode to Mrs. Renfro so she can hear.
We're Facebook friends. And back when Candy Crush was a big thing, remember that phase? And you could send people lives. She used to send me Candy Crush lives. And I was like, what a full circle moment that my third grade teacher is sending me Candy Crush lives.
That is so sweet. Okay, so
we still stay in touch.
You definitely have to send her a Facebook message then with a podcast link. Okay, you want to be a teacher. I know you were not a teacher. So when you went into college, it seems like that changed. So tell me about, deciding a major in college.
Yeah, so in college, I kind of, throughout high school, I really started having an interest in the medical field. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but that field intrigued me. My mom always worked in long-term, elder care growing up. And so she would talk to me about therapy, speech, occupational physical therapy. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I thought I wanted to do occupational therapy. That's what I originally in college. I didn't declare a major, but that was what I was thinking. And the summer after my freshman year of college, I got, I'll call it an internship. I was a therapy technician at a nursing home where my mom knew the therapy director. And she was like, this will be a great opportunity to kind of see what disciplines you like, what it looks like. And so I got to watch and observe. And one of the therapists there gave me really good advice. And she said, find out the gross things about each discipline, figure out what you can't handle, and then that will help you narrow down what you want to do. And so I was like, okay, physical therapy, there's blood and bones, and you also have to have a doctorate for that. I wasn't cut out for that. Occupational therapy, a lot of bodily fluids, helping people go to the bathroom. I was like, not for me. Speech therapy, you help people eat, so you do have to deal with, the mouth and things of that nature. But I was like, I can do that. But on top of the gross things, I also got to see how speech therapy combined science, which was one of my favorite subjects, along with language arts, but the language part. And I always loved reading and writing. And it was this really cool convergence of those two things. And I was like, oh, I think I want to be a speech therapist.
Nice. And I love whoever gave you that advice. That is wonderful advice, because at one point I thought I was going to be a nurse, and then I thought about it and I'm like, Rachel, you couldn't deal with the fluids, the blood, that's just not your thing. So that is wonderful advice for anyone who is interested in a healthcare medical profession. Think about.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I wish I could remember who it was that gave me that advice and go back and be like, thank you so much, because I would have gotten into a career that I hated and been like, uh-oh, I'm stuck.
Yeah. Okay, so you got into speech therapy. Tell me about what did your first job look like after college?
Yeah. So like I said, my mom always worked in elder care, and she's so passionate about that. And so growing up, that's kind of the lens that I saw things through. And I had that internship. So I just always knew I wanted to work with adults all throughout grad school. I'm not going to say I didn't pay attention to the adolescent children classes, but I was just so psyched for the adult classes. So I always knew adults, adults, adults. I want to work in like a skilled nursing facility. That's where I want to be. So out of college, those were the only jobs that I applied for. And I got hired at a skilled nursing facility. At this point, I had just gotten married. So for anyone who can picture this geography, we were living in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I got hired to work at a skilled nursing facility in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So it was about an hour away from where we were living, a very rural college town. It was actually my rival college town. And I was the only speech therapist there. So brand new baby therapist, all by myself in this little rural town that I have to drive an hour to. Not exactly what I pictured for my first job, but that's where I found myself.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. Your first job, you have this vision of what you want, and then you get there and you're like, wait, this does not feel the way I expected. So it wasn't what you expected. How did it feel? What did you think at that time?
It felt really scary. I felt like, okay, just a couple months ago, I was a student who couldn't really make any decisions. And now I am the person who is at this facility who is making decisions about what diets people are on. And I'm saying like, yes, they need therapy or they're ready to graduate. Now, I will say I had a supervisor. I met all of my like supervision hours because your first year is like a certification window. And so you have to have so many supervised hours. I did have a supervisor, but by and large, I was the only one there. And so it just felt like a lot of responsibility. And I felt how like heavy the job was.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know that I am cut out to do this, to make these decisions on my own. I need someone to like bounce ideas off of and tell me if I'm doing a good job. Because, in school, you're used to, getting grades and getting feedback. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that feedback anymore. So, again, I had a supervisor, but that day-to-day, like working with somebody feedback.
I see. And that's totally different shift from what you've been used to your entire life. So how did you decide what to do next? When did you know, okay, I don't really like this. It's time to actually make a change?
So that decision actually was made for me at a great time. I worked there for a few months, and then my boss came to me and she said, we've had some changes in the company. We have a therapist who's actually moving closer here. I know that this is a far drive for you, so we're going to move her to this building. We're going to move you to a different building that's closer for you. And it actually was where there were two other therapist girls that I had gone to undergrad with. And so I got to change from, okay, I'm by myself, I'm all the way out here, to cut my commute in half. And now I'm working with these girls who are my friends. And so it was a good opportunity for me to see, okay, I was already feeling like this heaviness and this anxiousness of, okay, this will help me decide, is it the company I don't like? Is it the building I'm at? Is it working by myself? So I transitioned buildings and started working with these girls. And it was so great to have coworkers and like a team. We all worked in the same office, and that was really great. But I still was feeling this like just anxiousness all the time. Angst. I woke up anxious every day. I didn't love going to work. I dreaded going to work. But I was still like, okay, maybe it's just the company I'm working for. Maybe it's the building. Like I didn't really know because I didn't have, a ton of experience to compare it to. I wasn't sure what it was. So then again, at that point, when I didn't know what I was going to do, my husband's job relocated us to Houston. So I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity to decide, this will help me see. I'll work at 3 different places, and whatever the 2 out of 3, like or 3 out of 3, if it's all bad, I'll know this is not for me, but maybe I just need a change of scenery. So we moved and I started working at another skilled nursing facility. And after working there for a while, I realized, okay, it's this setting. This is not for me. Again, I was just anxious all the time. I had a great coworker and mentor who was phenomenal, but I actually came across something this weekend that I wrote during that time. And reading it made me so sad because I could feel how anxious I was every single day. And my husband kind of had to have a heart-to-heart with me. And he was like, this is not working for you. It's not working for me. You're miserable. I feel bad for you, but also it's making me stressed. Like, you cannot keep doing this.
So
So that was kind of my impetus to really make a change once I had worked in like 3 different settings and realized, okay, this really isn't working.
yeah. So you tried, you said, let me still give this a try. Let's try out. You went from one building to another building, from no coworkers to coworkers, and then you went to another similar type of facility in a different town, and you're like, nope, not for me. So how did you know what was for you, or how did you decide how to test out what could be for you?
So I kind of just had to try out of desperation, looking to see, okay, what are some jobs that are available? And I looked online like you do when you're looking for a job, and I found 2 part-time jobs, one with home health and one with a pediatric private practice. So I was like, okay, these are 2 totally different things. I really thought that I would like the home health more because, again, remember, pediatrics never really wanted to do that, but they were hiring, and I was like, this is different. Maybe I'll like it. I don't know. So I started working 2 jobs to make up for, the loss of a full-time salary. And lo and behold, I started finding myself more drawn to this pediatric job. I did the home health and I still felt that anxiety, that just nagging anxiety that wouldn't leave. And with the pediatrics, even though it was really scary and I was having to learn a completely new skill set, I just didn't feel this like nagging sense of dread. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't expect to feel this way, but the more that I was there and the more that I learned, I was like, okay, I think I kind of like this.
Yeah. And so at the beginning, you said going into speech therapy, you knew you wanted to work with adults, and now you are testing out, another setting, home health. Now you're working in a pediatric setting, and you're really starting to like pediatrics. So what did that feel like to enjoy something that you knew was not for you and start to enjoy it? What was that experience like?
I kind of felt like I was betraying myself. Like, okay, this is what I always thought I would want to do. And then all of a sudden, it's not what I'm liking. And I think that there is this mentality in the therapy world that the harder, quote unquote, harder setting that you work in, like the tougher you are, the more that you prove yourself, like, oh, well, I can make it in this kind of setting. Yeah. And that working with kids is kind of like the easy way out. It's not, but there is this kind of mindset. So part of me felt like, oh, am I taking the easy way out by doing this? What does this say about me that I can't handle the setting, that I couldn't handle the stress? So all of those thoughts went through my mind. And then I realized, okay, there's no reward for hating your job and sticking with it.
There's
no
none.
Reward for being miserable all the time. It's okay to like your job and it's okay to have fun. And that was like a real mindset shift that I had to go through.
Yeah, it's like you gave yourself permission to lean into enjoying your job. And I want to pause here for a minute because I love how you pointed out, yeah, people have these stigmas around, whatever profession you're in. I'm sure there's different settings where people think that's harder or more prestigious, or, if you're in a different setting, it's easier. And I'm sorry, but anyone who's worked with kids before knows that is not an easier setting at all. But it sounds like you had to let go of what others' expectations were of you and what others might judge you for. So how did it just take time? How did you actually let that go and give yourself permission to be free and do what you really want?
I think it was just time. I don't know. And I don't even know who these others were. It's not like I had this peer group that was like, no one was actually saying that to me.
Yeah. So it was your voice in your head. Yeah.
This in my head. But I think I just, over time, I wish I had like a great answer for that. But I think just the more I did it, the more I was like, okay, this is okay. And the more that I saw the fruit in my life outside of my job, that I was like, okay, this is paying off. Like, there's so much more here that I couldn't deny that this was the right fit and the right choice.
Yeah. And you said the fruit outside of your job. What was some of that fruit? What were the things that were showing up outside of work that made you say, I really need to stick with this choice because, life is getting better? How did you know that?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. So many things. About 6 months after I started this job, I had a miscarriage, and that led me on this fertility path, seeing a fertility doctor. And the doctor I was referred to just so happened to be down the street from the clinic where I worked. And so, because of the flexibility of my job, I was able to go to appointments and it wasn't that far away. And so I could kind of like go there and come back. Working at this clinic, I was an independent contractor, which means I didn't have like so many vacation days. I could take time off when I was miscarrying and didn't have to like tell everybody everything that was going on or go through a bunch of red tape. So that was really huge. Then COVID happened, and even though it was a huge shift to go from working in office and being in person to doing teletherapy, which I'm sure everybody can relate, and some, going from in person to Zoom, that allowed me to work at home and also continue pursuing these fertility treatments. But we also decided at that time, my husband and I had wanted to do foster care for a really long time. And that's something that had been in our hearts, but the timing had just never been right. And we realized, okay, we are stuck at home. We will literally never have more time than we have right now. And this, COVID, there's only going to be more kids that are going to need homes. So we were able to pursue foster care and do all of our certification and training and have more flexibility. They were offering all the classes online at that point. And then we had a 4-month-old little boy come into our house. And because I was working at home and had flexibility, we didn't have to find childcare for him, which wouldn't have been the end of the world, but it was just one less thing that we had to, do, that we were able to keep him at home. And, I would work in the afternoons. My husband we just could take turns being with him. And during that process, I was also going through IVF. So that was really nice to, again, have the flexibility, be at home. And then I was pregnant, and first trimester is no joke. So it was really great to be able to like lay on the couch, run upstairs, do a session on my computer, and run back downstairs and lay on the couch. Because had I had stayed in the skilled nursing facility world, I would have there was no teletherapy going on there. I would have had to go in every day. There would have been no flexibility. And I know that so many people had to do that. And
I see. Even during COVID.
Kudos to you if that was you. But it was just this realization of like, wow, if I had stayed, I would not have been able to do this. So yeah, I was able to have that flexibility. And then after he was with us for 6 months, he ended up being reunified with his family. And about a week later, my husband's job relocated us. And at this point, I'm like 27-ish weeks pregnant. And I knew that I wasn't going to work when I had the baby, but it was this awkward amount of time of like, I don't really want to find a new job for just a couple months, but this is like way too long to not work. And again, because of teletherapy, I was able to continue working. I was in the same state, continue working remotely through the summer, which was really awesome. And then my daughter was born, and she was born with severe lip, tongue, cheek ties. And the treatment, like part of the treatment team for that is speech therapist. And I knew that, but that's just not my area of expertise at all. Mm-hmm. But my boss is like phenomenal, that she is world renowned for treating these things. And so I was able to go to her, and she was able to help me navigate how to get treatment for her and people to call, and okay, you need to make sure you do this, this, and this. And that was really helpful because I wouldn't have known the first place to start or the people to call or whatever. And then just through helping my daughter through that, and honestly just raising her, and as she grows up, I'm able to learn new skills and also sharpen skills that I had previously used in working, that whenever I do go back to work are going to make me a better therapist, a more empathetic clinician. And so it's just this really sweet, full circle, interwoven, like job and personal, like it's so hard to separate one from the other because it provided all these opportunities for me.
So Kelsey, you started this job because of a move. You had 2 different jobs. You decided to stick with pediatrics, totally not on your, not what you planned for yourself. And this job ended up giving you space to take care of your health, to take care of your foster child, to take care of your new baby, to still make money while you're pregnant. There's so many good personal things that came out of this job.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Like, I could have never like planned this for myself. This was totally like God ordained, walking me through this, because you don't take a job thinking like, oh, this is going to provide all of these. Oh, and the other thing that I didn't even mention is the whole reason that I was able to do these fertility treatments is because as an independent contractor, I wasn't offered insurance. And so I was able to get on my husband's insurance. And anyone who has walked the fertility realm knows that insurance does not want to cover any of that stuff. But he, for some reason, had like phenomenal benefits, fertility benefits. And so I was able, if I had stayed on my own insurance, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like, because I was able to get on his insurance, just things that I could have never imagined or thought to plot out for myself came to fruition because of taking this job.
Yeah, because you didn't even know at the time that you would need fertility treatment, or that, you know, a lot of insurance companies at jobs don't cover that. So because you were a contractor, that got covered. And then what you said about your boss, who knew that when you had your baby, that she was going to need a specific type of treatment that your boss was the best in. I mean, you couldn't have planned this out. So I'm hearing there's so much power in trusting. Sometimes you have to trust where you're at in a situation, and you had to believe, even though you did not want to work in pediatrics starting out, the job felt better than any job felt. It didn't fit your view of what you thought you should do, but you had to trust that it was the right thing before you even saw all the good things that would come from it. Like, what helps you trust when you don't see the full picture, or you don't know, like, you couldn't have known all these good things that would come from this?
I think when I look back, even before I took this job, there have been other things in my life that didn't make sense at the time. And I would just pray and be like, I mean, I wish I could say that I was like, God, it's all okay. I'll be okay, whatever you say. But I a lot of times just fought kicking and screaming.
Yep.
But then I would look back and see how he provided and how he brought me through, and how I ended up like, oh, this isn't where I thought I wanted to be, but look at where I am. And so just reflecting over that pattern in my life really helps me see like, okay, I've been here before and I haven't liked it. I haven't wanted to be here. I haven't known how it's going to turn out, but look at how it's turned out every single time. And it's not always immediate. As a matter of fact, it's almost never immediate.
Yeah.
But the more that it happens, and the more that I can just tell him like, hey, I trust you. I don't like this. I don't want this. I wouldn't choose this, but I'm trusting you. And seeing that pattern repeatedly play out in my life makes it a little bit easier each time to trust that it's going to work out again.
Yeah, there's this beautiful balance of, you know, being intentional with your career, making smart decisions, but also there is a piece around letting go. You have to know when to let go, when to maybe be patient and stay a little longer than you want to, when to trust that there are, you know, greater forces at play working in your favor. And I think that's really powerful too. I think it's powerful right now. There's a lot out there around, you know, taking charge of your career, but there's also a time, more often than we'd like to think, when you have to just take a step back or relax a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really, you know, there's sometimes, like you said, sometimes to stay and sometimes to go, and just really leaning into, okay, when is that time for me? Like, sometimes you do need to push through, because this job was not my dream job. Like, it was not perfect. There were a lot of things about this job that I didn't like, but because there were all these other things going on, it was still the right fit. And so just because something isn't your dream job doesn't mean that there's not something to gain from it or a positive. Just because you don't like every aspect doesn't mean like, okay, I need to leave this job. Like, there can be other things that come from it.
And sometimes, you know, sometimes a job, you get this great career, this dream job, you get to do the kind of work you want to do. And it sounds like there's other times when you get a great life. Like, you thought you came to a job to build a great career, but it's allowing you to build a great life outside of work. And I think there's power in that. So if anyone is considering, you know, when do you stay, when do you go, make sure you're evaluating what's happening outside of work and what is the impact there.
Yeah. And it may not be something that you can tangibly see, or that you tangibly see might not be the right term, but that you automatically are drawn to. Like, you may have to think about it or really look for it to be like, oh, I didn't realize that this was allowing this opportunity, or because of this, I'm able to do this. It might not be immediately apparent to you.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that stuff happens only when you're sitting and reflecting or in hindsight. So it might take a minute to say, okay, let me think about my life. Maybe if you put on a piece of paper like friends, family, health, fitness, all the different parts of your life, and you start to say, where was I at before I started? Where am I at after? Mental health is huge. We've talked about being anxious. So yeah, that could be a good inventory to use. So I love your story and how even in a job that was not perfect, far from perfect, you still found so much goodness in it. And today you told us, that you planned after you had your daughter to leave your job and you've left it. So tell us what you're doing today. How have you shifted since becoming a first-time mom? What does that look like, and what does work look like for you now?
Yeah. So my primary role now is raising an almost 1-year-old. I don't know when this is going to come out. She might already be 1, which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
So I spend my days with her, but I also on the side dabble in charcuterie board making. Back like 2020, like early 2020, before we knew what 2020 was going to be, I started my business Olive and Orange, where I do charcuterie boards and teach charcuterie board classes. Maybe not the best thing to start right before you can't be around people teaching group classes. But it's been something that I've kind of like dabbled in since then. And now staying home, my daughter's finally to the point where she takes naps and I can set her down and I can do some other things. And so this has been a really great thing to be able to do kind of on the side to fit into pockets of my day and make it work for me rather than the other way around. And it's just a fun, like, creative outlet for me to have.
And I will say Kelsey's being very humble right now, saying dabble. She has an Instagram for Olive and Orange. Is the Instagram Olive and Orange?
It is, yes.
Okay, she has an Instagram. It is beautiful. Her spreads are amazing, and she is extremely talented in this area. So if you are in the DFW area and you need a charcuterie board, please give her a call. Well, not actually call. We don't do that anymore, but go on her website, check it out. She is extremely talented. And I love that you have now found this really creative outlet that's so different from speech therapy and what you've done in the past. So last question of the day, I ask all guests this question. What do you do to recharge? Because we know, we're talking about careers on here, but it's also important to make sure you're filling your cup up in a fun way. So how do you do that?
So right now, this is totally filling my cup. So with Olive and Orange, the charcuterie boards, I love just like hospitality and hosting. I love a good theme. Mm-hmm. And so I am planning my daughter's first birthday party, and it is lighting me up. The theme is my first rodeo.
Oh, that is so cute.
I know. I get so excited every time I talk about it. And so planning her party is just giving me so much joy right now.
Oh, and I'm going to put this out there. Maybe at some point you'll be a party planner.
Oh my gosh, I would love. So kind of speaking of career stuff, it's funny looking back in my sorority in college, I was nominated, like elected to be the social chair. And at the time I was like, that's so random. Why did they pick me to do that? And through doing that and then not growing up, but as I got older, like loved hosting, I'm like, oh yeah, I love a good theme. I love a good party. I would love to be a party planner.
Yeah,
that would be so much fun.
You're good at themes. I think recently you posted on your stories, you had hosted some kind of book theme party and she had the steps on how to do it. So even if you like help other people throw it, I think there's definitely a market, and I can't wait to hear more on if you actually run with that. And I just wanted to say, so Kelsey and I share a love for the Real Housewives franchise on Bravo. Mm-hmm. And she had a baby shower that was Bravo Real Housewives themed. It is seriously the cutest, most thoughtful baby shower I've ever seen in my life.
It was the best thing that's probably ever happened to me. My friends did such a good job. I wish I could say that I planned it. I really didn't. They surprised me with it. They ran with it. And it wasn't like, when you have a theme like that, it could lean kind of tacky, but it wasn't. It was like so on theme, but also so cute. I had a cameo from Sonia Morgan, which is again, my most prized possession. It was, oh my gosh, the pictures came up on my memories a few weeks ago. And I was like, did y'all want to throw this for me again? Do you want to recreate this? Because it was so much fun.
Maybe you can do a Bravo birthday party. And I will say, tacky is not the word I would use to describe. It was super classy, sophisticated, beautiful party, but the way they incorporated the theme was amazing. So, your friends also have some great party planning skills.
Yes, I am very lucky to have such thoughtful and good taste having friends.
Yeah. Well, Kelsey, it has been so wonderful to talk to you about your career. I know I'm leaving with some lessons learned, and I appreciate you sharing with everyone. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Thanks for listening to the Career Creator Podcast. If you want to sign up for our email newsletter or keep in touch, please visit our website, www.thecareercreatorpodcast.com, also linked in the show notes. I appreciate you joining us, and always remember, your next move doesn't have to be your last move.